Thank you once again for joining a part 2 series of K-Reach webinar, which is focusing on polymer exemptions. Not only exemptions, but then we are also looking at some possibilities of registrations. But in general, how exemptions will work in South Korea, because there are some differences in how exemptions work in South Korea when you export chemicals. So once again, I would like to thank CHEMEXCIL for giving us this platform to host the webinar for the esteemed members. And this webinar is exclusively for CHEMEXCIL. And so welcome everyone. And also we have participants. I think you will hear some introduction and opening remarks. So let me start the session officially. So this is part 2 series. If the participants joining us in this session have missed part 1 series, which was held on 25th of July last month, you can watch this series on our YouTube channel, or you can request us separately. But this was the session covering 2004 K-Reach registration deadline, which is end of this year. And now for today's session, we are focusing on exemptions, and we will focus more on polymers, as India is growing in terms of plastic industries, and then we have a lot of polymers, specialty polymers, that has good scope to export to Korea, because they also have similar market on the plastic industry. So it's important for participants to follow this webinar, and we are happy to share our experience and knowledge on this K-Reach exemptions, including polymers. Before we start, I would like to officially welcome CHEMEXCIL, Prafulla Walhe, who is the Deputy Director of CHEMEXCIL, and I would request him to now open the session.
Thank you so much, Gagan. Am I audible?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to our today's webinar on K-Reach, basically how to apply for the exemptions, which includes polymers. As he rightly mentioned by Mr. Gagan Kumar, that this is an extension of our previous webinar on K-Reach. And I welcome Dr. Jeehey Song from, she's a regulatory manager from REACHLaw, Mr. Gagan Kumar. Thank you so much for conducting this session. So friends, our exports to Korea is to the tune of $500 million. And this is a very, very important market as far as chemicals are concerned. And there is FTA is also there. There's the CEPA, India-Korea CEPA is also there, where we have a preferential duty access. But then we also need to comply with this regulatory requirement, which is Korea REACH. And this is our attempt to make you aware about this regulation. I request members who are present here to make this webinar more interactive. If you have any questions, please put it in a Dropbox, and speakers can give answers after the session is over. So without wasting time, I just wanted to hand over this session to Mr. Gagan Kumar and Dr. Jeehey. Thank you so much once again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Prafulla. Thank you for the opening remarks. I think it's a quite sizable market for Indian chemical industry to explore this market, as we have FTA and CEPA. So this is something which is very interesting. And please attend this webinar, as it will have a lot of opportunities for businesses also. So let's start with the session. I will now introduce REACHLaw. So I'll start with myself. I'm Gagan Kumar. I'm the director at REACHLaw India Private Limited. I'm based out of New Delhi. And I've been working in REACH and REACH-like regulations since 2007. And my interest includes REACH and, of course, all local regulations affecting environment specific to the chemicals and other articles. So I'm happy to share experience and the best advice for the companies and members to comply with K-Reach. Jeehey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, thank you, Gagan. It's very nice to meet you again online. My name is Jeehey. I am the team leader of REACHLaw's Korea office. I'm honored to present KREACH in this webinar. It is my hope that today's webinar will assist you in becoming more familiar with the complex and challenging KREACH regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeehey, and thank you for the introduction. So for saving the bandwidth, I will switch off the cameras and I'll focus on the content. And so let's start with the webinar practicalities. So this is our disclaimer and copyright. So this is specifying that specific to the no representations and warranties are made. So please use this content at your own will, and we will not take any liabilities. And also this information is confidential. So if you seek any representations or distribution, please obtain comments from REACHLaw. Thank you. So I guess some practical information about the webinar also as indicated by CHEMEXCIL, Mr. Walhe, that you can always use the chat function available to you to send your questions to us. And we will take questions and answer at the end of the webinar. We also received few questions at the time of registration, so we will explain the answers to the participants. So you have already submitted those questions at the time of registration. We will use those first, and then of course if there are any questions which are left out, we will of course have an opportunity to discuss this directly, or we can always send you the answers received by email. And this webinar recording will be available like the part 1 series on our YouTube channel, so you can always follow up this webinar for more understanding from today's session, or you want to distribute to your other in your network. So feel free to share this information. And we would like to also have your feedback, so please feel free to let us know how we can improve our deliberations in this webinar. So starting for this webinar, I would like to open the agenda. So I will briefly introduce REACHLaw. For those who have joined us for the first time on part 2 series, we will introduce and briefly about our company. And then we will discuss more in details about the different type of Korea REACH exemptions. And then my colleague will be explaining you the criteria which is especially for polymers, if you export polymers. Then what is the criteria that you need to satisfy, and also the information you would require to apply for exemptions. And then we also have some process that how the application usually works in KREACH, what kind of data requirements and timelines. So if you would like to explore the market, then the timelines are very important, and also for your customers, so you prepare well in advance. And what kind of cost of exemptions apply when you do the exemption applications in Korea. Then the products like polymers which are not qualifying for exemption, you would require registration. So it's not that 100% polymers would undergo exemption. If they do not meet the criteria, then you need to also apply for registration. So as we are covering exemption, and it's important for us to also explain you the registration of polymers. So please also follow us and stay with us. So I see that it will take slightly over 60 minutes. So I require your patience, and please stay with us till end, as we will have Q&A session also. And we are also providing some appendices on the list of polymers which are registered, and it's a public information also, but we are providing this information for the interest of the participants. So this list is available at the end. We will share it also during the webinar. So let me start with the introduction of REACHLaw. The REACHLaw our focus, and we are especially providing REACH and REACH-like chemical regulations globally. And as you see, our focus is primarily for market access in these markets where REACH or REACH-like regulations are already in force. And these regulations demand companies to apply for registration, and you need to have a local representation or local company uh, registered in these markets to apply for registration. And these are the regulations which we are covering in terming that these access would help you to export your chemicals. And it's a long-term decision. So since you would like to export or explore market in these regions, then it is important that you consider these regulations as assets, and apply for registration if you are planning to export, or you are seeing that you would like to grow your market for exports. So this is something which is important, and these regulations are something now starting with EU REACH as the basis of the regulation is now also in other countries. So if you are exporting, for example, to UK, you also need to have UK REACH. And then if you're exporting to Turkey, you also need to apply for Turkey REACH. And the K REACH that we covered is also for this webinar. And we also recently have uh, webinar coming up, but then this is something new that Ukraine REACH is also implemented. And if you see that our offices are exactly in these locations, which helps companies to apply for direct registration. So going forward, these are the locations for which we have our offices, and this is now coming on your screen. So these are where our offices are also located, and these are the offices will be used to apply for registration to give you a full access to the market. Now, looking at what kind of market access services you need. So this is something which is coming from the regulatory requirements, and REACH specifically covering the industrial chemicals, and then chemicals have very wide use. So it means that even if you have some formulations which has chemicals, you need to comply with these regulations. But there are other areas that you would like to discuss, that how you can comply in a cost efficient manner. But if you are into chemical side of business, whether in as such or in mixtures, then you need to comply with these regulations. And most of the regulations have some quantity threshold, and REACH specify 1,000 kilos, like 1 ton metric tons per year is the threshold. So if you export any volumes beyond that, you would require the REACH registration. And so these are the services that REACHLaw provides, and it's a market access. So you need to have your registration before you can sell your products to your customers. And these are the services, especially on the only representation, which is something representing your registration as a legal entity. So you need to have association with us to apply for registration, because it's a local requirement coming from these regulations. And this is something we offer, and this is the main representation service. As you do, if you do not have any offices in these countries, then you would require, it's a mandatory requirement to have representation to apply for registration, and it's the first step to set up your registration requirement. So this is something we offer. And then going for the registration, all technical work involving some testing and compliances and data collection is also required. So we will provide registration services which is specific to the requirement coming from these regulations. And going forward, there are other services depending upon the country. For example, EU, then there are certain other support that we offer, and these are already required under different stages of regulation. So if the regulation is in the early stage, then the authorization, for example, and other restriction services will come at the later stage. So these are all services which REACHLaw will offer as and all is in-house support. So REACHLaw has all kind of, as you see in the next slides, our expertise are specifying not only technical but other areas which are required to fulfill the service requirements demand by these regulations. So it's EU REACH, Ukraine REACH, as I mentioned, is already now in force. It will be implemented next year. We will have some slide also for this, but then UK REACH, Korea REACH is what we are covering today for exemptions. Turkey KKDIK is a similar REACH regulation of Turkey, and India BIS is something specific on the quality side, but this is the only requirement which covers chemical. And then you have India REACH, which is already in the draft stage, but there is no update, and it will be when it will apply or when it will come into force, then we will also be supporting these requirements. So going forward, this is the location of REACHLaw Korea Limited, and we are based out of Seoul, and we will be using this REACHLaw Korea Limited as only representative. So this is the legal requirement to when you apply for exemption or registration, you it's a prerequisite and it's a mandatory requirement to appoint our company, a local entity in Korea, to provide you the market access and other services required to export chemicals. So this is our office, and Jeehey is located in this office with our colleagues. Specific to the K-Reach, we have these services, and these starting from the only representation by REACHLaw Korea, then pre-registration, because it's a regulation which is still experiencing registration, so we still have a window for pre-registration, which will give you certain timeline to register your chemicals, and you can access market with the simple cost now, and then you can basically decide and register based on what cost of registration will come in later phases of deadline. So you can access market with simple cost now and then decide on registration before the deadline. So this is what we covered in last webinar on 25th of July. You would like to see the webinar, and if you have any questions, you can contact us. Then lead registration is something specific to the main registration, which covers all technical information, assessment, and chemical safety report, exposure assessment. So these are like quite comprehensive dossier, which is the main dossier, which is also analyzed by authorities to ensure the chemicals are safe for use. And this is something very important. And the quality of this dossier is something which authorities always looking industry to fulfill, and meaning that and REACHLaw has I would say a tremendous acceptance of dossier. Our dossiers prepared by our team, lead registration team, has successfully passed without decisions. So this is something important to consider, that the first dossier that you submit to the authority describes your um, I would say method of complying to this regulation, and how serious you are in terms of meeting the regulatory requirement as a professional, respecting the country specific regulatory requirement. So this is something important, that we have a very high success, no decisions whenever dossiers are checked by the authorities. And this also helps our customers not to have additional cost in future from the testing. So we budget this already at the beginning, which means that you have future, you have clean business, and you can always rely on the correct dossier. And it is also important for co-registrants to not to get additional fees when your dossier is of good quality. And then we all manage your management procedures, lead registration, dossier preparation, as I mentioned. Representative consulting company we covered in the last webinar. You would like to see what does it mean, as there are new terms. Then chemical safety report services is important. That is for more than 10 tons registrations. It's a mandatory requirement. Exposure scenarios are also linked to the chemical hazardous nature and the uses in Korea. New chemical substance notification and all kind of exemptions that we will cover today, including polymers. And if you have to protect your confidential business information, this is also we provide. So And if you have any kind of due diligence that whether my chemical require K-REACH or what kind of decision I should make, whether I should register or I should rely on my importer registration. So all these things I think we can cover in due diligence and impact assessment and all other regulatory exemptions that you have in mind. Please feel free to contact us. So these are like full suite of services in K-REACH that we offer. And then this is not linked to this webinar, but in future webinars, we will of course also cover KOSHA, which is coming from your safety data sheet MSDS call in Korea. And this is also have certain requirements that only representative for this KOSHA is separate. And this is also we provide because authority wants that you appoint somebody who is responsible for the safety data sheet. So we do all three: submission, electronic submission to the authority, then distribution of to your customers, maintaining the safety data sheet. So it's like project management services because you never know what update and when it has to be updated. So this is important that you have a track on this if you take these services. And again, CBI and other support is covered in these services. So feel free to contact if you have any requests from your customers or you want to know more about this. Then we have our YouTube channel. This is something covering all kind of webinars we've been doing. So it contains a lot of information. So please feel free to access this. And then if you like, also make a comment when you see the webinars. We also have a short talk. So if you have a quick review of what is happening, please follow the short talks also on this YouTube channel. Then REACHLaw is also exhibiting in in-person events. If you would like to meet us, now the opportunity is in Turkey where we are exhibiting. But as far as India is concerned, we are always present either as a visitor or exhibitor in most of the chemical events. So feel free to check our availability or request for a meeting if you would like to meet us in person in India. This is what I would like to share, as I mentioned earlier, what is happening globally. As you see, EU REACH is also uh, now in the phase of checking the dossiers, issuing decisions on the dossiers, so which leads to your dossier updates. And there is a deadline to update your dossiers, 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months that you should know. And what kind of updates will come on software, what changes it will affect your current dossiers, and whether it will lead to some costs. And evaluation is something important going on. Then REACH is also making a change due to Green Deal. So as changes to REACH will impact your, of course, the existing registrations and future registrations. So please feel free to follow our webinars. You can register by our website and you will receive notification of these webinars. Then K-REACH we have covered. It's a deadline for this year for 100 to 1000 tons, and we will also cover more information in future. But then specific to this, the deadline is this end of this year for 100 to 1000 if you export. And India, I mentioned, BIS is something which is governing quality and safety of the products, and chemicals, some odd chemicals are covered here. It will grow in future. So you can also follow us on India BIS, how it is developing. It is specific covering on the quality aspect and factory inspections. India REACH will come in force. When it will come in force, it depends upon the government agenda, but it is whenever it is coming in force, we will be able to provide you the compliance services. UK, as you see, there are also developments in UK political side, and this will affect the regulatory environment. And UK has previously postponed their registration deadlines to 3 years. So the next deadline after postponed is 2026 and October, then in 2028 and 2030. And most of the registrations are the ongoing, discussions are ongoing. But then there is a new registration model, which is in short, it's an ATRM, alternative transition registration model. So we are closely following up what is happening, and more changes will come which will define the registration changes in UK REACH. So it will also have a significant impact on cost of registration and data requirement. So please follow this, our future webinars on UK REACH, as it's a developing stage. And Turkey KKDIK is a similar, which has meaning that they have changed their registration process uh, in terms of the deadline. Now they have a scattered deadline, data requirements specified, and registration deadlines here is now changed and revised as end of year 2026, 28, and 30. And they also are looking to apply changes in terms of handling this deadline specific registration. So please follow our webinars. We have already announced this recently. We'd recommend you to register it separately. Last but not least, Ukraine REACH. It is something new. A few days ago, this was, I think, implemented, and now it will enter into force officially on 23rd of January 2025. After which you will have to certain obligations, and again here it will be an only representation followed by pre-registration and registration with scattered deadlines. So please follow these webinar again here, and what services plan in advance, because you will then have a competitive advantage over others if you access this market. And India and Ukraine will also opening up trade during the recent visits of our Prime Minister. So I would suggest that please consider this market also for exports of chemicals. With this, I would like to start the topic that we have to cover today. And starting with the exemption, which is, I think, K-REACH has a specific exemption requirement. And I mentioned in my last series that we will go into the details. So K-REACH also has exemption. Now exemptions are basically here two types. One is that the exemptions are completely out of scope. So regardless of the use, if you have the products exactly defined in this, let's say it's Article 3. So if it is exactly defined in this Article 3, I will show in the next slide what does it mean, what is radioactive material. So, and what is medicine. So radioactive, you know, it's clear to you by definition, but what is medicines and non-medicinal products, and how drugs and narcotics is also clear. Cosmetics and raw materials. So Korea, as you see, is a good in the market, is a good cosmetic market. It not only produce and a good market on cosmetics, so they have a very opportunities for you. If you have an exclusive use by your customer in Korean cosmetics, then you can apply for exemption, including raw materials, which is not the case specific to the EU REACH. Then similarly, pesticides and raw materials. So this raw materials is in addition to what cosmetic product is as such. So please consider this opportunity. This is an opportunity, I think, for you to apply, and cosmetic is a good market there. So please consider this and exports to Korea. It's a responsibility also for CHEMEXCIL to promote this so that companies know this and they can improve country exports to South Korea. And then there are other like odd 15 items. I will not go into the details, but I will explain you the definition, and you can always contact us if you want to have more. But food and food additives, feed, then you have health functional foods, medical devices, sanitary products, biocidal products, and organic foods or raw processed foods. So foods is also termed differently here. So these are 15 entries, and there you it's completely out of scope, so you don't need to do anything, but you have to have some kind of statement on your company that you are exempted because these are meeting these definition according to Article 3. So all the statements, if you seek how to write, you can always again contact us, but this is exempted. Then the different article for exemption is from the pre-registration, registrations, or any kind of notification is Article 11. In Article 11, there are two kind of exemptions. One is self-declaration, meaning that you do not have to do anything, but you have to self-declare that you are exempted, and when you meet these definitions. Then the other kind of exemption is that you have to get exemption from some application that you have to use through authority. So you have to apply for exemption using an only representative, and then exemption is obtained by the authority by paying a fee. We will see it in the later part of the presentation. And these are like 8 entries. We will also explain, I will also explain these 8 entries in later. But this is how the exemption you can get from registration, pre-registration. And once you have applied for exemption, you have to ensure the exemption, the dossier or the application is up to date. If you have any changes, then this exemption that you have obtained originally require modification and update. So whenever any submissions you have to made an authority, you have to consider that that submission is up to date, regardless of what application you have used. But any submission to the authority needs to update, and you should consider that. So let's look at the Article 3 now. What kind of definitions it includes. So if you see now on your slide, the Article 3, it's quite a text here. But if you see, I have provided the what kind of acts, like different Nuclear Safety Act or Pharmaceutical Affairs Act, then similarly Cosmetics Act and the Pesticide Management Act. In the act, they have defined articles and para, so you can always check that what does it mean. And here I have specified again raw materials. So this is the 15 entries, and these are the corresponding acts and paragraphs which you should consider to see that your product meets this requirement, and your business, you do not need to act on carriage. It's just a information that you can keep in your records, so for future business references. Then these are the Article 11 exemption, which is covering exemption without additional procedures. So there I have basically chemicals which are imported, and you are doing or exporting some kind of machine into Korea which has this chemical embedded in that machine, or a chemical substance which you're importing together with this machine or equipment, and it is used for some testing operations there. It's also used for education or something, but this is if you have any category like this and you have to have specific consultation, then you have to contact us separately, because each defined separately and we have to do case by case. Then in 3, the chemicals that is contained in the product that perform certain function, and in particular in the solid form, and is not leaked during its use. Again, this requires that do you think that it meets your exactly this definition. And then chemicals which are very low risk, and this is usually declared by and publicly announced by Ministry of Environment, MOE, after some evaluation. And this is the list which is still valid, and I have shared some chemicals list at the next slide also. But these are the impurities, byproducts, minerals, and this is what also defined. So you need to see if it is fitting to your product that you are exporting. And then substances existing in nature, this is also common, but then you have to see what does it exactly mean in terms of the carriage. And then you have uh, amino acids and its salt. This is also defined, and I have provided some list for you next, so you can understand what does it mean. So if you see now, this is in addition to the extension to my last slide, that the hydrates of chemical basically are also included, but these are the chemicals like 44 entries, and you can see that if you do any of this, then exemption. And this list, if it grows, like it's a dynamic, so based on the evaluation committee, it may go up in future. So this is something you can always check from the experts, that whether it has exceeded, and if it is more than 44, then if it is there, then you can always, but this is stable at the moment. And if any of the chemicals you are and you would like to explore further information, you can contact us whether it meets your requirements. So it's something requires some discussion on case to case basis from our experience. exemptions are always not straightforward. It is exemption, but you're required to have it discussed with some professional and seek the advice from them before you make any conclusions, and because your customers rely on your judgment. Then this is the Article 11. Here you have to apply for exemption. So here it means that it will include also some part on the authority fees, as well as some requirements that you have to fulfill. So there are 8 entries. I would like to mention that item 7 and 8 is not for Indian manufacturers, because this is specifically for the Korean manufacturers of chemicals and intermediates. This is not applicable to overseas manufacturers, meaning Indian companies. So only items 1 to 6 you can apply, and it is again for the exemption. So therefore 7 and 8 is not applicable. Item 1 to 6 is applicable. So this is like subject and period. This is coming from the Act guidance. And if you see that the chemical export that you manufacture in India, and you would, or import, meaning that you are manufacturing and somebody is importing into Korea for wholly exported overseas. So uh, it is not basically coming back into Korea. It is just uh, is in some kind of warehouse, and it is then exported to third country. So this is something form is required. You have to explain this. Some details are required, and then this you will get a exemption notification from the authority. Then the second type is chemical manufactured or imported in order to manufacture another chemical. Again, this new chemical which is manufactured is again exported, wholly exported overseas. So this is also India consider when they have a trade benefit or duty benefits. So if you use a raw material, then you use it in a way that the final product that you make is again exported completely. So there you have some benefits. So similarly, it is exemption is applicable, but here again application is required. So form the different form is same, but then entries are different. So you have to full the representation that if you seek, then your consultant, for example, REACHLaw Korea, will fill it for you and then apply for exemption. Similarly, for scientific research analysis, certain information is required, which you need to fulfill, like uses, duration of testing, analysis, research, photos. So it's not straightforward exemption. You need to demonstrate that this is exactly for this subject, and then period, and then documents that is required. So very briefly, we have described this, but this is exactly we will collect it as per the form, and then we will apply for it before we apply for exemption. But this is again for development. Similar requirements are required. So if you see, the information here is more when it is coming up in terms of research and development. So meaning that the industry is using this for some R&D purpose, and it's planning to use this chemical, then more information is required by the authority to apply for this exemption. And this is similar to PPOD, if anybody has heard in EU-REACH, but it requires more information and exemption application. Then polymer compounds, my colleague Jeehey, Dr. Jeehey, will cover this more in the next slides in this presentation, but this is also the focus of today's webinar. Number 6 is surface treated. So I will explain this on your left hand side, that if you are in substance A and substance B is basically is coated on substance A, then this new substance is formed, substance C, which is nothing but substance A coated on and substance B is coated on the surface. So Korea recommends that substance A and B must be registered if it exceeds more than 1 ton, and based on this, substance C exemption as such is can be applicable. So if you do not manufacture these two substances, so then you need to get this from a supplier who has registered in KREACH. Then this is something you can uh, explore and consider. But again, here, as I mentioned, that it's not straightforward. So please obtain consultation on case-to-case basis. 7 and 8 I mentioned is not applicable, so I will skip this. Sorry. So now looking at the K-REACH, as I mentioned, the only representative is the requirement, mandatory requirement for the exemption under Article 11. So for obtaining, this is from the Act, that obtaining also from exemption, you require an only representative. So this slide is meaning that if you are only into exemption category, Article 11 product category, you would still need an only representative, and the application that you submit has to remain up to date. So we have to maintain that up to date via this representation. So every application needs to have an active only representation. If you don't have only representation and you obtain exemption and then you stop the representation, that will not work. So this is important for you to consider, because exemption is obtained by REACHLaw Korea Limited, for example, the only representative, and they are responsible for maintenance of also this exemption. So therefore, this requires continuous maintenance as required in the regulation. So this is how the only representation confirmation looks like. I have also covered in my previous talk that this is how you appoint an only representative by foreign manufacturer, and details comes, and then this is authority accepts this appointment. It's not that that you have secured an agreement with an only representative. That appointment must be confirmed by the authority also. So they are recorded in the authority, and they accepts this representation before you can apply for exemption. So this is the mandatory step required in K-REACH, that you first obtain confirmation from authority on only representation and then apply for exemption application. So with this, I would like to now hand over to my colleague, Dr. Jeehey, to cover, and I'm sorry that I have taken a lot of time, but please stay with us, and we will have some interesting information coming up for this webinar.
Okay, thank you,
And
Gagan.
Jeehey, you can let, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, there are many different types of exemptions under K-REACH, and following Gagan's explanation of the differences. And I'll focus on the polymer exemption in this part. You may be wondering why polymers need to be registered in this first place, but there was a case in Korea where a cationic polymer substance is contained in a humidifier sterilizer cost about 1,800 deaths and 6,000 victims. As a result, a special law was enacted, and the government checks the hazards and risks of polymers the same as other chemicals. So what are the criteria for registering polymers, and what are the exemptions? Next, please. Yes, in accordance with the paragraph 3 of Article 2 of the K-REACH Enforcement Decree, a polymer is defined as a substance meeting the following criteria. It shall be composed of molecules in which at least of one kind of monomer unit is continuously repeated. It shall show the characteristic distribution of molecular weights in accordance with repetitive numbers of monomer units in each molecule. It's molecules that at least three monomer units form a covalent bond with at least one monomer unit, or other reactants shall be at least 50%. Its molecules of the same molecular weight shall be not more than 50% of the weight. Registrants must explain in person and prove with GPC data that they meet these criteria. Next, please. Yes, the theory may seem a bit difficult, It is a polymer material if all four conditions described above are met. Among them, the condition of repeating monomer units and showing a characteristic monomer molecular weight distribution are general polymer characteristics. However, the third and fourth conditions are objective information defined by K-REACH, so they must be accurately understood, confirmed, and explained in the GPC data. However, it can be better understood through examples. Which of the three corresponds to the definition of the polymer and which should be registered as a general substance? Here, material B does not correspond to the definition of polymer under K-REACH. The reason for this can be found by checking the weight of monomer units with a repeating number of 3 or more. That is, material B is only 40%, so it does not satisfy the condition of being in 50% or more. Next, please. Yes, according to the last condition, molecules with the same molecular weight should not exceed 50% by weight. Since substance C has a content exceeding 50% in the molecular weight range of 5,400, it is not a polymer. Therefore, among the three substances here, only substance A corresponding to a polymer as defined by K-REACH. Only substance A can be registered as a polymer compound, and B and C must be registered as general chemical substances. Next, please. When it is confirmed that is a polymer as defined by K-REACH and the conditions below are met, registration notification is exempts. A polymer whose number average molecular weight is at least 10,000 in which the content of molecules whose weight is less than 1,000 is less than 5% and the content of molecules whose weight is less than 500 is less than 2%. And a polymer whose number average molecular weight is at least 1,000 but less than 10,000, in which the content of molecules whose weight is less than 1,000 is less than 25%, and the content of molecules whose weight is less than 500 is less than 10%. However, the polymer is not exempt if the polymer is a cationic polymer or a polymer whose number average molecular weight is less than 10,000, in which an unreacted monomer, which is any of the following chemical substance, constitutes more than 0.1% by weight. Please next. Yes, even if you apply for exemption, KECO, the administrative agency will check the application contents and contact the applicant if there is a problem. This may be a mistake, or the applicant may have submitted the data without sufficient understanding of K-REACH, resulting in complex data. Approximately 1 or 2 revisions and supplements are required per polymer exemption application. The specific revision and supplementation requirements are as follows. If the monomer information is not submitted or less than 2% of monomer information is missing, and if the standard material and sample material measurement data cannot be confirmed, and if failed test data is submitted when submitting unreacted monomer information, or if the test data report is insufficient, or if confirmation of the lower monomer is required when the monomer is a polymer, this is missing, etc. If there is a various grade information for the same test number, or if data is not submitted, some information is omitted, etc. So other cases include polymer names, cases where CBI cannot be applied, and cases where the reason for exemption is unclear, since corrections and supplements are required in many more cases than expected. Caution is required when submitting application document. Next, please. Now I will explain the exemption application process. The actual application is processed in the IT system, and in this webinar, I will show you the application screen in detail. Next, please. Yes, K-REACH can be processed in the same IT system, whether it is a registration or exemption. Since KECO manages the system, if an error occurs, contact KECO. This is a system where the data received for application is electronically transmitted to the relevant agency according to the task. The screen shown here is the main screen of the IT system. All tasks can be performed after login, and as shown above. The system supports only Korean, except for chemical substance search. Then I'll explain in detail on the exemption application page. Next, please. Yes, to apply for exemption from registration, click on the top left corner of the first page that appears after login. Exemption from polymer whose number average molecular weight is at least 10,000, in which the content of molecules whose weight is less than 1,000 is less than 5%, and the content of molecules whose weight is less than 500 is less than 2%, or whose number average molecular weight is at least 1,000, but less than 10,000, in which the content of molecules whose weight is less than 1,000 is less than 25%, and the content of molecules whose weight is less than 500 is less than 10%. Click on New Creation and select the exemption confirmation target and the reason. If you choose to apply for exemption from polymer registration, attach the results reports of the average molecular weight measurement and the result report of the unreacted monomer content measurement. If there are other reports to submit, you can increase the quantity by clicking the Add button here. To prevent data from being deleted due to system errors while writing, click the Save button at the bottom right. Then click the red Final Submission button to complete the submission. After the application submits the document, if the receptionist clicks the confirmation button, the status will change to received, and the document will be sent to the exemption confirmation officer from this point on. The form on the left form is the exemption confirmation application form prescribed by the law. You can enter the items in the form in the system. Next, please. Yes, if you have a lot of substances to apply for exemption confirmation, you can apply in bulk at once. In this case, download an Excel form and upload it. It will be reflected in the system, and if you click the red submission button, all substances will be submitted at once. This is useful function when there are a lot of substances. Next, please. Yes, this is the web page for applying for exemption from registration if or submit on behalf of an overseas manufacturer. Please check the or item above. Next slide. Yes, when you select an exemption reason, the required documents to be submitted will change depending on the exemption reason. So the form you enter will change. Please note that the registration is required for all quantities except those eligible for registration exemption. Next slide. As of June this year, of the 45,000 phase-in substance, 105 substances are registered as polymer and 994 polymers are exemption from registration. We will provide you with the information required for exemption, the expected time frame, and the cost. Next, please. Enforcement Regulatory Appendix 5 explains the information required to confirm exemption from registration for polymers. It may seem complicated, but the criteria are clearly presented. So monomer information contains list of chemical names and identification number of the monomers, etc. And whether the main chain or branch is cation is determined by the structure formula. If it is difficult to determine by the structure formula, submit the test data, including all monomer structure of 2% or less in the polymer structure formula. The results of the molecular weight measurement should include information about the testing facility and test director, test material information, and equipment status, and system calibration information. In other words, a complete test report is required, not unabbreviated data. Next, please. For polymers that are difficult to contain with horizontal molecular weight and molecular weights of 1,000 or less and 500 or less, data providing that they are insoluble in any solvent is required. You must select at least 3 polar and non-polar solvents such as THF, MF, and DMF, etc., and measure them and submit photos and data values during the measurements. So for well-known polymers, you can submit one of the data providing that the number average molecular weight is very high, though through papers or providing the number of average molecular weight according to the characteristics of the insoluble polymers. Next, please. When you submit an application for exemption confirmation, you will receive an application results notification that you are selected as exempt or not. Both forms are in Korean only, and KECO, which has been delegated by the MOE, will perform the exemption confirmation work. If you have been appointed, you must also, if you have been appointed, you must also write the appointed number. The application result notification contains the applicant's information, chemical substance information, import or export country and weight, and exemption confirmation application result and reason. Next, please. Okay, let me tell you about the period it takes to receive the notification of exemption confirmation. If you decide to receive get a exemption confirmation, you must prepare the data to be submitted for the exemption. In the case of polymer exemption, GPS data is required and monomer analysis tests may be required depending on the substance. Yes, let's assume that you have both data. In the case of polymer exemption confirmation, you should not submit only. Let's assume that you have both data. It takes about 20 days to 40 days. But depending on how ready for the submit data is very important to condition, and the results of the submit documents will be available 5 business days after the receipt. However, if the explanation of the submitted documents is insufficient, authority will request correction within 5 days. The period calculation will stop when a correction request is issued. So in case of the polymer exemption confirmation, you only need to receive it once, but for substance manufactured in Korea and exported, exemption confirmation must be received every year, and for substances for research and development, exemption confirmation must be received by research and development unit. Next, please. The fee to be paid when applying for exemption confirmation varies depending on whether it is a registration or a report. Exemption confirmation for registration costs 35 euros and exemption confirmation for reporting costs 30 euros. Next, please. Yes, the authority publishes list of polymer exempt from registration using case and substance name. And if your polymer is on the list, REACHLaw Korea recommends to first apply for exemption. You can contact us if you want to check if your polymers are on the exemption list. We are providing a list of 105 polymers registered under KREACH as of the date of decide if you would like to proceed with direct polymer registration to save time and cost. Refer to the appendixes at the end, which contains the list in descending order with the newest as 105. Next, please. Unlike EU REACH, KREACH requires companies to register polymers that are not polymers of low concern if manufactured in or imported into Korea. However, data requires reduced. Next, please. Now let's learn about the registration of polymer substances. Basically, the tests that must be submitted for polymers that require the registration are same as the tonnage level of general chemicals. However, additional data providing that is a polymer must be submitted, and there are tests that are exempted from submission. Polymer verification data are polymer property data, residual monomer analysis test data, and stability test reports. If it is proven that is a polymer, 15 tests are exempted, including 7 tests for physical-chemical properties and 8 environmental toxicity data under authority notice. Next, please. When registering or exempting a polymer, an express review opinion must be written in Korean and submitted along with the test report. So it is very important to know which consulting company is in charge when registering a polymer under KREACH. So I will show in the real case. So this is the UV3 substance with 1000 TPA as phase-in chemical substance that apply the data omission according to the Article 13. This substance was confirmed to have only industrial use and no consumer use, and it was confirmed to have low toxicity. So registration was completed with only 10 test data instead of 47 test data. Next, please. Now, first check the polymer information such as cast number, monomer, residual monomer, structure, monomer, weight, range, and distribution. If you don't provide the information to the importer or cannot be processed for export to Korea. Next, please. If you know the case number, you can find it in the KREACH IT system. If you don't know the case number, you can create a name using the monomer information, but the case number is different each polymers, so you need to find them. When the polymer is phase-in substance, you should check your tonnage per year and prepare your registration depends on your tonnage. Next, please. If you want to register a polymer, you must first find the SICO and check the SIP. So according to the Article 17, even if the name or identification information is the same, if there are significant differences in characteristics such as the number average molecular weight range and degree of solubility in water, making it difficult to view them as one chemical substance. If the classification or labeling information of the chemical substance or the submission materials for registration applications are different, the SICO may be divided. However, in the case of actual registration, if the composition ratio is as follows, the registration was completed with one SICO. Next, please. Yes, polymers require simplified test data compared to the general substances depending on the tonnage range. When submitting registration documents in IT system, if you check whether it is a polymer, the required submission data items are structured differently. The cost burden for testing is lower than for general chemicals. For physical chemical substance testing, only 5 tests are required, no matter how high the tonnage. Testing for next please. Yes, testing for explosive properties, flammability, and oxidizing properties is not required at all for polymer registration. Next, please. Yes, in case of the ecotoxicology information for degradability, there is no need to any testing for degradability, only for polymer registration. Next, please. Yes, only we need to the acute toxicity tests for fish and Daphnia, and inhibition of freshwater algae growth tests are required for polymer registration. All others are optional. So many tests are exempted for the polymer registration. Next, please. In case of human toxicity, is also not a mandatory submission requirement for many tests for polymer substances. In summary of the above explanation, polymers volume 1 from 1 to 10 TPA only need to submit 6 types of physical chemical tests. In addition, substance volume from 10 to 100 TPA only need to submit 9 types of test materials by adding 3 types of human and environmental toxicity tests. And in case of the substance from 100 to 100 to 1000 TPA, only need to submit 14 types of test materials. This is a big difference from the 27 types of the test materials that need to be submitted for registration of general chemical substances volume from 10 to 100 TPA. Don't worry, even if the tonnage increases, this means that even if exceed 1,000 ton TPA, only 21 types of test materials need to be submitted. Gagan, please go to the next step. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Jeehey, it was quite comprehensive, and as you see, audience, that we have exceeding the webinar. I think next webinars we should keep slightly on higher limits. So, but then if you see, my comment was that the polymers, the data requirements and the definitions are not straightforward. So these are mentioned in one of the slides that we have. But I would request that please consult us if you need any recommendations, whatever information you have at present. And polymers testing are quite comprehensive, and then only the exemptions you will see will have a positive decision. So this is something we recommend, and let's go to the Q&A. I will basically now display the Q&A that we have received. During the webinar. So I will take these, and I will take one if I think that the audiences are still there. But number one is something on the K-REACH. So this was the question at the time of submitted at the time of registration. That do regulators set up which are the analytical methods to determine the molecular weight? I think if you're attending, then you have received the answer in one of the slide where we have mentioned the GPC is one of the analytical method, and analytical method means that you also need to understand what kind of test reports and the information that goes into the test report is required under K-REACH exemption. So you can obviously whatever information you have, but this analytical method is GPC, which is defined in one of the slides. And then number two is requiring the SDS format for rubber chemicals. So it is not part of this session, but SDS is for rubber chemicals. We need to understand that are these substance as such or these are mixtures. And of course, MSDS format is different for K-REACH. And as I mentioned, we are coming up with the different session for the MSDS required in KOSHA. But I would recommend that you can always contact us to understand, and we need to understand what are these chemicals so we can guide you on the format. Then question number three is that we manufacture composable plastic products, and we would like to know if we need K-REACH for exporting the finished goods. I think it's a good question for other participants as well. So I would request Jeehey if you would like to comment on this question number three.
Yes. In case of point number three, it can be self. Yes, it is no further action required on the K-REACH because this is the finished goods is not objective on not object to the under K-REACH. So in case of three, it is no further action required on the K-REACH.
Right. So thank you. I think, but if you have specific that you would like to, or if you have any comments from your Korean importers, you can also consult us separately because these are borderline cases at times, and depending upon the composition of the article, there could be some additional disclosures that you need to make in the supply chain communication with your importers. So this is relevant to priority chemical substances under K-REACH also, similar to SVHCs of EU REACH. So recommend if you would like to contact us to ensure that your customer requests are answered correctly. And then I will take one question from the chat box, and then there are a couple of other questions in the chat box. So we will provide the Q&A document, and CHEMEXCIL will circulate to all the members, including other information of this webinar. So in respect of time, we will do that. But one question I think that I will take up is that if my polymer is a PLC polymer, how should I justify in the registration dossier? So this PLC is a polymer of low concern. That is how the PLC is defined. And Jeehey can complement my answer, but this justification is based on the I think the report that you need to the information that you need to report in the application. But any specification or any specific advice which Jeehey you would like to share with the on this question from the audience?
Yeah. Yes, the definition of low concern molecular is different from slightly from the country to country. If it conforms to the PLC defined under K-REACH, you can apply for exemption confirmation. Whether exemption or registration basic information on the polymers requires provision of the GPC from the GPC data. We need more analysis from the specific data.
Okay. Thank you. And with this, I think we would like to end this session today. And I would like to once again thank you, CHEMEXCIL, for giving us this platform to share our experience and information with the members. And so I wish you a good day, and we will be sending information in this Q&A document through circulation through CHEMEXCIL. So thank you once again for patiently hearing. And this is the information that we mentioned. You can always contact us if you need any specific advice to your case. These are contact details, so please feel free to contact us. And this is the information that we have providing for the polymers. You can also check this online, that the link that Jeehey has provided. But then this is the information. As you can see that this 105 in descending order is listed, and with the cache number. These polymers are registered. So if you are making these polymers, I would recommend that you directly apply for registration instead of going for exemption application. So but this is something which you need to discuss, then you can always contact us. So this is the list that is covered, and most of the polymers are defined with the cache numbers, as you can see, and chemical name, of course. And then some chemicals are not defined with cache numbers, are I think very few, which is which you can see that which is not granted, and these are like so here I think you need to consult us, and then of course we can guide further. So with this, I thank everyone for hearing us patiently, and I wish you a good day. Thank you.